Um, Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Areej, and I'm an organizer with For Our Kids. Most of you are aware of For Our Kids. We are a national network of climate-concerned parents, grandparents, and caregivers. The network takes various kinds of climate action, ranging from land stewardship and climate activism to advocacy and litigation. We invite you to check more out about For Our Kids on our website. I'll also invite Corey to introduce herself, my colleague, Corey Helm.
Thanks, Areej. Welcome. Nice to have you here. Hopefully, we'll have a few more people trickle in. My name is Corey, and I'm in Toronto, and I'm new to the For Our Kids national sport team. I'm the new schools organizer and supporting Ontario team. So, really excited to be here with you and to also be here with Laura and Michelle and learn together tonight. And if you ever want to get in touch about a school climate action, you can reach out to me through the website. Thanks, Reach.
Um, Before we begin, I would like to do a land acknowledgement. As a network, we are calling in from different parts of what is now known as Canada, joining from the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territories of many different Indigenous nations, Inuit and Métis people. I personally am joining from London in Ontario, which is the traditional territory of Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, and Attawandaron people. I am neighbors to the Chippewas of the Thames First Nation, Oneida Nation of the Thames, and Munsee Delaware Nation as well. We live in communities that exist on land that is taken from many Indigenous people across Turtle Island. Acknowledging that First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people as original stewards of the lands is the first step. So we invite you to learn more at For Our Kids website. If you are comfortable sharing where you're joining from and what land you belong to, please share that in the chat as well. This webinar is being held as part of our school's Climate Action Lab, which is a program that is being offered with our partners doornumber1.org to help parents organize by using a tailored plan of action aligned with the specifics of their particular school community and the type of climate action that they want to do. I'll hand it over to Michelle to introduce door number one.
Yeah, hi everyone, and a special hello to people who are watching this as a recorded piece of information later while you're juggling all the things that you're juggling. I have such great respect for parents who are trying to do this climate action work and all the other things you do. So my name is Michelle Andrews. I am a co-founder and the executive director of doornumber1.org. And our mission is to catalyze bold, aspirational climate and nature action in schools and through schools into communities. And we've been at this for now about almost 6 years. And somebody just put in the chat our website, it's doornumber1.org. Lots of free resources, lots of inspiration there that we keep adding to all the time. And primarily, we have been working with independent schools to try to pilot and work with them, create a program that we are now in conversation about how we can support public schools and public school districts with what we've been working on. I'm happy to answer questions or talk more about it at some other point. And I have huge respect for EcoSchools and very happy to have Laura here with us, and really delighted also to be collaborating with For Our Kids on this project to help anyone that wants to take climate action in their schools. We've got lots of ideas and suggestions. So you can check out our website, and I'm happy to give the floor over to Laura now to as our featured speaker for the evening. But Areej, you probably have a proper introduction for Laura.
I do have one, but I know that we're all very excited to dive into this topic and to hear more from Laura. So, Laura, thank you so much for joining us. Laura Nickerson serves as the board and district program manager at EcoSchools Canada. EcoSchools leads the efforts to embed sustainability and climate action into schools. She's drawing on a master's in environmental education and communication and more than 15 years of experience in sustainability and education. The work that she's doing is strengthening district-wide capacity to reduce environmental impact, helping build climate resilient schools in Canada, and also empowering students to lead meaningful change. Thank you so much for joining us, Laura, and over to you.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me. I'm really excited to yeah, share a little bit more about EcoSchools. I'm just gonna share my screen. I've got some slides. Let's make sure it's gonna work. Okay, I think you can probably see those. Yes, so my name is Laura Nickerson. I'm joining today from North Vancouver, which is the ancestral and unceded lands of the Squamish, Tsleil-Waututh, and Musqueam nations. Um, I've been with EcoSchools for about 18 months. And prior to that, I worked in the facilities department of the Vancouver School Board, where I worked with staff, educators, and students in the implementation of their sustainability plan. Um, and I know that school districts can be a little bit opaque. It's like not always clear what school boards are doing. And I know this because I am also the parent of two elementary school students, where I am an active member of their schools pack, and where I agitate and advocate for sustainability and environmental issues with varying degrees of support and engagement from other parents. So I'm really happy to be with a group of people who are really keen and interested in engaging in this kind of work for students across Canada. Um, this evening, depending on where you are, it's still the afternoon where I am, but I'm going to talk a little bit more about EcoSchools Canada, who we are and what we do. And then I'm going to talk more specifically about how parents and volunteers can support an eco school, and then how they can move that advocacy beyond their own school and into the kind of like broader ecosystem of the education sector. So I'm going to jump right in. If you have any burning questions, you can raise your hand or put them in the chat. There will be time for some questions afterwards as well. I can't see the chat on my on my screen, so if you know, Corey or Arid or anybody could just let me know if there's a question. What is EcoSchools and who are we? Since 2005, EcoSchools Canada's framework has provided independent reporting and recognition for schools and outdoor and environmental education centers. We reach almost 1 million students annually, and we're the largest bilingual voluntary environmental certification program for elementary through secondary schools in Canada. We're open to all K-12 public schools nationwide, and our curriculum-linked framework helps schools track, assess, and celebrate their environmental achievements while inspiring climate action and fostering environmental learning. Whether a school is just getting started or they're looking to enhance their green initiatives, EcoSchools provides tools and recognition to make a sustainable impact. Our mission is really to nurture student leaders, to reduce the environmental impact of schools, and to build sustainable school communities. And the way that we try to do that is to envision every school as an eco school. So from individual behaviors to collective impact, all members of a school community are empowered with the knowledge, skills, perspectives, and desire to act as environmentally responsible citizens. I do a lot of work around greenhouse gas emissions in school facilities, and I often talk about how the best emission that a school district has or a school has is this like launching out of students as environmentally conscientious citizens into their future. And so I think this schools are a really important place for this learning to happen. The EcoSchools Canada program helps to support environmental leadership in schools a couple of different ways. So through building environmental leadership and capacity for students, staff, and the school community. We recognize excellence with robust reporting and a collective impact framework. We connect to local resources through a strong network of regional and national partners. So depending where a school is in the country, we aim to work with local environmental organizations so that schools can be connected to experts in their own region. Um, and we don't want to reinvent the wheel. We want to amplify and highlight the great resources that already exist out there for schools. And so we're always looking for like regional experts to be able to enrich the resources that are available to schools and students. We also work to support Canada's commitment to achieving net zero emissions by 2050, and also work with like school facility operators to improve the operational efficiency of school buildings. How do we do this? It's a simple process. It can be summed up in 6 steps that guide schools on their environmental learning and action journey. So the first step is to come together and build an eco team. And so that's a dedicated group of environmental leaders who are responsible for leading EcoSchools actions and initiatives within their school. Eco teams can range from just a few members to the entire school, and they function best when there's a diverse membership that includes students, teachers, administrators, custodians, parents, and community partners. After forming your eco team, it's time to collaborate by reviewing your school's current practices and setting goals for the year. The EcoSchools website has a sustainability review that is available publicly. And it's a really valuable resource to help guide schools through the process of understanding what they're already doing and what's already a part of their school culture. Next, you create a customized environmental action plan for your school using our online platform. And you can also we have an annual planner to help schedule your actions throughout the year. And you can basically choose from a list of about 50 environmental actions that we have as a part of our program, and pick and choose the ones that are the most suited to your school and school community. Once you've got your plan, it's time to engage the school community in your inspiring environmental actions, projects, and campaigns. So you can implement the EcoSchools initiatives throughout the year, and keeping in mind that the actions are designed to be flexible and adaptable to all curricula and school types, ensuring that any school that's interested can participate in the program. The program's designed to be able to be implemented both within the school curriculum, so during class time, and as an extracurricular. So depending on the interest and capacity of the staff in your school, there are curriculum-linked activities for every grade, K through 12, or it can be run as an extracurricular by just a teacher sponsor or a parent volunteer who comes in over lunch hour or after school to run these initiatives. The next thing is taking the opportunity to reflect. So after each action, you reflect on your success and identify areas for improvement. There's a reporting process that happens through our website, and you can report on each action that your school has completed and share your progress and earn valuable points that go towards ultimately a certification. At the end of the year. That's the process that we're in right now at EcoSchools. And then finally, there is the celebration, which is a key tenet of the program, where students and school communities can celebrate their hard work and their many accomplishments. So all of this takes place within one school year, and then hopefully after you've achieved certification in June, you take the summer off to relax and get ready to start again in September. So we are active in 11 provinces and territories across the country. This is data from last year, actually. So we'll have reached more than 1 million students this year, which is really amazing. Last year we had just over 1,900 schools participating. This year we surpassed 2,200, which is a big accomplishment that we're really proud of. And we work with school boards, districts, and divisions all across the country. The Everything takes place on our EcoSchools certification application. And this is known as the ECA. This is where schools register for the program. The ECA online was launched in 2020 and and it's the culmination of over 3.5 years of consultation and development with stakeholders in the education and environmental sectors, including students, teachers, board level staff, and partner organizations. So this application houses over 50 environmental and climate change actions with corresponding resources, and it provides schools with the opportunity to curate a unique action plan that can be updated and revised throughout the year and then year over year. Once your school has an account on the ECA, it's free for K to 12 public schools in Canada. Once your school has an account, as a parent or a volunteer, you can ask for them to create you an account, and then you can collaborate with students and staff in planning and implementing environmental actions. And so that's what I'm going to talk about next, is how you can support an eco-school as a parent or a volunteer. So one of the most effective ways parents can support a school engaged in the EcoSchools program is by becoming actively involved in the school council or the school PAC, depending on what your school calls it. So the school council is often where things are discussed between parents and the school administration, where priorities get set, and where new projects are launched. So by taking part in this group, parents can better understand the school's context, its needs, and the possibilities that exist within a school. So through regular participation, parents can learn about the environmental initiatives that are already in place, the challenges that a school may be facing, and the resources that are available to support new actions. So having this understanding makes it easier to suggest realistic and meaningful ideas rather than proposals that might be difficult for the school to implement. I can say in my personal experience, my oldest son is currently in grade 3, and it has taken us a little while to get some interest from the other parents in some of these green initiatives. But slowly but surely, with persistence, we've been able to kind of develop a green ambassadors team within the parent group so that we're considering sustainability in many more of our activities than we had been before. So parents can play a valuable role by asking constructive questions like, what environmental topics is the school currently working on? What support do teachers need to develop new projects? And how can families help reinforce these EcoSchools actions at home? So this collaboration not only strengthens environmental actions, but it also sends a really powerful message to children, which is that caring for the planet is a shared responsibility between schools and families. So once parents have a better understanding of what the school's context and priorities are, they can offer practical support. And lots of the EcoSchools projects require time and organization and extra hands, and parents can play a key role in making those things possible. We've got lots of resources on our website. Like you can see on here, there's an annual planner, which helps schools plan out their actions so that they're happening, month to month across the school year. They're not all bunched up in April during Earth Month. So it's like a more consistent way to incorporate it into the school culture. We also have an online calendar that you can add to your Google Calendar or Outlook calendar that identifies lots of those one-day events. This one has the Great Backyard Bird Count or World Water Day. So those pop up in your calendar and you can plan ahead. Parents can help in lots of concrete ways, like organizing community cleanup days, recycling drives, or tree planting, preparing materials, and coordinating communication with other families. Some actions within the EcoSchools program are difficult for schools to carry out without extra help. So organizing large events outside of school hours are definitely going to require parents. potentially inviting local partners or managing logistics that teachers and other school staff are not necessarily going to have time to do. But by having parents get involved, it helps spread that work out. And it strengthens, again, that link between home and school and encourages more families to take part as environmental action becomes like more obviously a collective effort and part of the school culture, ideally. This is what I was mentioning before, like communicating these environmental projects, between school and home. It's really helpful. There are a lot of newcomer families to my own school. And so helping them know what is a part of the school culture and what is important, in terms of these initiatives is really helpful for inviting their participation and their own, expertise, and yeah, sharing some of the like new experiences that are always a part of joining a new school community. Um, so parents they can act as ambassadors, about these initiatives and talk with other families. Um, they can share the school's achievements more widely and, including on like social media or in school newsletters, things like that. Um, yeah, let's see. Another way that parents can support EcoSchools is by helping to search for funding opportunities. This is a really big one. Many environmental projects require financial resources, and schools don't always have the budget to carry them out. Particularly the big projects like creating like a school food garden or building a greenhouse. Potentially doing some school ground greening or building an outdoor classroom. Parents can play an essential role by volunteering their time to look for grants, sponsorships, or community funding. We have a running list of grants that are available across the country on our website. And we try to keep it as up to date as possible so that it like can become a place where people automatically look for new opportunities. And so if parents are not necessarily able to help out during school hours, this is a great way to get involved, kind of behind the scenes. You don't necessarily need to be in at the school, but you can help with researching what grants are available, identifying local businesses that might want to partner or be a sponsor of a project, writing and reviewing grant applications, and then supporting other fundraising initiatives. So even a small amount of time dedicated to this can have a really big impact in a school's ability to develop long-term environmental initiatives. Another way for parents to support is to just take part in the actions organized by a school and extend them into daily family life. So environmental education becomes so much more meaningful for kids when they see the same values and practices reflected at home. And so parents can reinforce what students learn at school by adopting similar habits with their families, such as practicing energy-saving behaviors at home, preparing eco-responsible meals and reducing food waste, encouraging sustainable transportation like walking, biking, rolling, carpooling to school. And by aligning home practices with school initiatives, parents can help children understand that caring for the environment is not just a school project, but also a way of life. And it's important for parents to actively join these events. And participating in these actions shows kids that their efforts matter and that adults are committed to making these changes as well. So, what else can you do? I mean, I feel like I'm preaching a little bit to the choir here, but um, advocating about your school specifically is really important, both within the school and to the wider community. So advocacy means supporting the policies and practices that make it easier for a school to implement sustainable initiatives and create a culture that values environmental responsibility. So some of the concrete ways that parents can advocate include communicating with your school and with your school board. So, are there already policies or plans or initiatives in place? And figuring that out can be kind of difficult sometimes. Again, school district websites, not necessarily the most well-designed and comprehensive. But if you've got a school-related question, it's best to speak directly to your school principal. They'll have the inside scoop in terms of like what kind of recycling program happens within the school building, what kind of environmental initiatives are happening, what kind of environmental learning is going on within the school's curriculum time. They'll also know if there are students who are interested in starting an extracurricular club around environmental action. For like bigger board related questions, checking the school board website is a good way to find information. I recommend checking the facilities department page if you can find it. Often the environmental and sustainability related policies and procedures for a school district live within that department. The ones that are not necessarily explicitly connected to learning in the curriculum. You're contacting your school board superintendent is a really great way. It's typically a communications person or an assistant who often answer those emails, but they can direct your inquiry to the right department. So whether it's facilities, operations, procurement, or if your school district is fortunate to have a dedicated sustainability like staff person, they can get you in contact with that person so you can better understand what's happening at your school district. And contacting your elected trustee representative is also a really great path forward. Your school's website typically lists the one that's assigned to your school. And again, they typically will direct your inquiry to the right staff person within the district. Communicating with local authorities and municipalities are really is also really important. A lot of the goals that municipalities and local governments have around climate change action rely heavily on engaging students. And so, as a parent, speaking up about those policies, like improving a recycling infrastructure, installing bike racks, and supporting school gardens, supporting active transportation. Those are going to be aligned with goals that your municipality is already working on. And so often it's like combining these two authorities together helps to create some momentum. They're also a really good source of grants. They typically have community grants that they can offer to schools and residents. And so that's another good way to help fund some of the projects that you might be working on. Participating in the parent committee is, as like I mentioned before, something that's really impactful. I think that my best advice here is to start small. It's hard to get things started quickly. Schools like the status quo. Schools and school districts like the status quo. And so I will say that even my own kid's school is not participating in the EcoSchools program yet. I'm working on it. But we do, again, have parents thinking about this and working to support students who are interested in extracurricular events and activities around environmental sustainability. Connecting with local community organizations or local businesses to partner on projects like tree planting or community cleanups or environmental workshops is really a great way to connect an individual school to the broader community. Advocacy doesn't have to be formal or complicated. So even small actions like writing a letter, signing a petition, or attending meetings can influence decisions and create opportunities for your school. Again, it's like by speaking up, parents ensure that environmental initiatives are supported at higher levels, and kids can see adults actively working to make change, which is really inspiring. I think that that's kind of like speaks to the next thing that I want to talk about is just bring your skills and expertise. we all have these things that we're good at. We all have, skills that we as adults have developed that can help. So, are you a mover and a shaker in your local community? Can you connect and build partnerships and build networks with local organizations in your school? Can you write grants? Can you help with funding applications? Are you an amazing communicator that can really jazz up a school PAC's website or a social media page that highlights some of these activities and initiatives that are taking place? Are you a master gardener? Do you have expertise in tree planting or are you like a really great bike mechanic that can help do a bike tune-up and teach bike skills to students on the school ground after school so that they can ride their bike? All of these little things, bringing your own personal skills and expertise into the school just works to enhance the culture. Um, are you a climate scientist? Can you share your knowledge related to a specific subject? Connecting with the principal to let them know that you're interested in speaking with students in the appropriate like grade and subject is an amazing opportunity to build that relationship with your child's school. And you might even get invited to other kids' schools as well if you get a reputation for being an engaging guest speaker. Um, are you good at creative activities like making crafts from recycled materials? That's a great way to kind of start a conversation. Um, I think that this type of involvement really enriches the learning experience and shows that our communities are lifelong locations for learning to take place, and that we can all have a positive impact on our community. Any questions so far? I feel like a little bit like I'm talking into, I can't see anybody's face. So if there are any questions, no, I'm happy to take some now about that, or I can just keep going and we can save our questions for the end.
I don't see anything in the chat.
Okay, I'll just keep on going.
You're doing
Because
great, Laura. This is all awesome.
oh, thank you. Um, because the next thing I want to talk about is kind of expanding beyond your own eco school, and understanding the impact that you can have in the like broader ecosystem of the education sector. Um, Knowing how to engage beyond your school principal is important. To make sure that your advocacy is reaching the right people. So depending on um, what kind of thing you're interested in, you might want to talk to somebody at a different level. If you want to influence what's happening at a school, the school principal is the best person to talk to. But if you want to um, influence things at a board level, you have to go a little bit higher. So, as I mentioned before, checking to see if your school board has plans, policies, or procedures related to like in the environment or climate action or sustainability. If they have some of those things already in place, great. You can. That's a really great jumping off point. The At EcoSchools, we've done some research around this. And so at our last count, we found that there are about 50 school boards in Canada that have a publicly available climate action or environmental sustainability plan on their website that we can find. But there are 380 school boards in Canada, so we still have a ways to go. Um, so if your school district doesn't have any plans or their existing procedures don't really adequately address the concerns of families, schools, and school communities, we would offer that they try out the EcoSchools Board Program, which is another free program connecting K-12 school boards with tools, case studies, and a national network that aims to build climate resilient and sustainable school communities. So this is a program that is aimed at school system leaders at the board level. So people in facilities, procurement, superintendents, trustees. And it's a program that helps them to create meaningful plans that account for greenhouse gas emissions generated by school facilities and equipment. It helps them set targets for making reductions to those emissions, and it supports with the implementation of solutions that align with Canada's net zero goals. So again, this is a program that boards can participate in for free, and we hope to expand participation in that program and get boards working on putting these plans out in public and supporting the desires of students to see, again, adults taking meaningful action towards making positive change. Another thing that I think is really worthwhile is for you to read your provincial K-12 curriculum. These are big documents, but they're important because you can learn where environmental and climate education topics show up in various grades and subjects. So for example, in BC, the water cycle and the difference between climate and weather, that learning happens in grade 2. And the explicit information about climate change and its impacts happen in grade 7. So knowing when students are going to be learning about these topics can help you be prepared to support learning at home. And also you can be armed with this information about what's already part of the curriculum when you speak to school board representatives. And one way to make sure that this learning is happening in your schools is asking your school board superintendent if there are meaningful opportunities for educators to receive professional development related to climate and environmental education. So we need to make sure that teachers are prepared and confident to speak with students about these subjects, and professional development is really key in that. So that's like a tangible thing that you can be checking in with your school district about. You can contact your school board trustee at any time in writing, but making a delegation in person can have a really powerful impact on the people who are kind of like, again, creating the environment in which learning is happening in our school system. So delegating your elected school board trustee can be challenging. Every school board has a different process for how to speak at a board meeting. These policies and procedures will be, they have to be publicly available. They do exist on your school board website, and they're usually in the section that contains information about the Board of Trustees. The time allotted for speaking will vary, but it's usually between about 5 and 15 minutes with a period of questions from the trustees at the end if needed. Typically, they want to know what you're going to talk about in advance. And so if you have any slides or if you have, like a letter, they'll ask you to share that in advance so that their trustees can be prepared, again, either with questions or with information about what's happening at schools. This is a really important, democratic process that, like parents have to take an active role in. The people who experience school on an everyday basis typically can't vote. Their parents or their guardians are their voting representatives in these cases. And so engaging with these elected officials, it's like an important part of the democratic process. And again, trustees create the policies that are in place at schools every day. And so, this is a part of their role as a trustee is to, have an opinion about climate action and about the role that a school district plays in creating a better future. Again, parents, really great to have them make the presentation, but even better is having students. In my experience of attending school board meetings as a staff member, trustees have a much harder time saying no to students. They say no to staff members and to teachers all the time, but it's much harder to say no to students. And so if you have a child who is eager to share what's important to them, doing so at a school board meeting is really, really powerful. And I've seen lots of changes, including financial support being granted by the trustees happen because students speak up about what's important to them. And then finally, the Ministry of Education is another avenue of advocacy. School boards create the environment in which the curriculum is delivered, but the Ministry of Education is in charge of the curriculum itself. And so, even though changes take a long time, there are always groups working together to make improvements. And there is a lot of work happening right now around climate education and making sure that it's included in a meaningful way in the curriculum. A really great example of a group that's working to advocate for this is in BC. It's called Climate Education Reform BC, which is a group of secondary and now probably post-secondary students who are kind of agitating and demanding for updates to be made to the curriculum to implement a comprehensive, intersectional, interdisciplinary, and action-oriented climate education um, uh, process to have across all subjects. And so this is another avenue that parents can take is really like letting the Ministry of Education know that this is important. And so there can be work happening at schools, there can be work happening in the middle at school boards, and then also from the top down from the ministry to to create some really meaningful opportunities for climate education across all different grades and subject areas. So all of that, this is a whole lot of information. But I will say that to kind of like bring it back to eco schools specifically, is that there's so many different ways to engage in these issues. And sometimes starting at your own child's school is a really great way to just kind of like dip your toes into this advocacy. There are so many resources available on our website for people who want their own child's school to get involved in the EcoSchools program. And certification is totally optional. It's a really great way to get recognition, but even better than the recognition are the resources, the tools, the lesson plans that are available to educators that are just a really great way to implement environmental and climate education into their classroom, like at any time. And we're really eager to help any interested school start an eco team. So you can, there's a whole section of our website for parents and guardians. And there's also this really great like toolkit called Volunteering at Your Child's School, helps you kind of helps distill kind of everything that I've talked about. We also have a really great FAQ page on our website as well that outlines all the different steps involved in certifying as an eco school. So please feel free to visit our website. We're on social media, and you can always contact us directly, and we'll answer any questions and hopefully help you get started. That's it for me. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Laura. We do have a few questions in the comments. Um, Jackie has asked, how much have you had much resistance from school administration or anyone else?
Like in terms of schools starting the Eco Schools program, um, I would say that uh, when initiatives are kind of started by students or even by educators, like as connected to the school curriculum, we get very little resistance. I'm sorry, I've just been interrupted by my child coming home from school. Sorry. Um, we get little resistance. We tend to see people getting really excited because through the Eco Schools program, students are building their own advocacy and activism skills, and um, administrators and school board trustees and people in leadership love to brag about how student learning is having an impact on the real world. So we haven't had a lot of resistance. You get little pockets here and there. Staff at schools work really hard, and including the custodial staff. And so trying to start like an enhanced recycling program and suddenly you're collecting all these juice boxes in a different way than they had been before, there can be a bit of resistance to some of those kinds of changes. But for the most part, I would say that when it's student led, it's a lot easier for everybody to just adapt to the change and be proud of the student's achievement.
Hmm. There's another question about um, 'cause, I think this came up when you were talking about school boards and, engaging with them, and some of the ways that we can advocate to them. In Nova Scotia, and probably soon in Ontario as well. We're seeing that school boards, like we don't, Nova Scotia doesn't have a school board, and Ontario is losing that elected official role as well. So in that situation, where can parents take some of their advocacy to?
So like I think that this is the case in PEI as well, is that school and maybe even in Newfoundland and Labrador, the schools themselves are kind of like directly linked to the Ministry of Education in those provinces. And so um, I would say that, we've got really great partners in Nova Scotia and in PEI where, you know, schools are engaging directly with the Ministry of Education. And so that's kind of like where parents can direct their advocacy if they're not necessarily getting support from the school administrator. Um, I think that um, I think that that's probably the case because there is definitely governance over the way that schools operate. It just might have removed that layer of elected trustees. Um, and so, you know, contacting the Minister of Education in some provinces, that's going to have um, more impact than in others. But, engaging your local elected official as well. So your MLA or your MPP, I think it's what it's called in Ontario. Yeah, so that member of your provincial legislature might be a good avenue as well.
Hmm.
Is this a For Our Kids avenue as well, Arij and Corey? I mean, if people get involved with their local For Our Kids group, especially where there isn't, I mean, I know there's a very active For Our Kids group in Nova Scotia. Excuse me, for example.
Yes, and I think Jackie is part of the group that is taking that action. And we've had some participants before in school's climate action lab who were from Nova Scotia, so this has come up quite some times, and like, well, we want to do this and we want to see some change happen, but then how do we do it if we don't have elected officials to take into account or to make sure that they're held accountable? So who do we then go to? But it's also interesting that we've had a parent who has taken, so she is an avid advocate of electric school bus, and she wanted to bring that to different school boards in Ottawa. And she went to 8 different decision makers in the school system, and had that kind of bureaucratic tape blocking all her paths on those kind of 8 different decision makers that she met with. So it's equally kind of like, even when you do have, decision makers that you can actually go to and be able to set up a meeting with, that might be a little bit more available than Minister of Education, or more readily available. It's not a given that, it will always kind of work out. But I did really love your idea of like involving kids into your discussions, or incorporating that into the delegation. That definitely makes a lot of sense, and definitely adds a little bit more kind of credibility as well into like, this isn't just us talking about it. This is something that's going to benefit the kids, and then it just adds a little different angle to the conversation that you're having.
I think that a big component of the EcoSchools program is this, you know, push to take the environmental learning that is happening in within schools and already exists in the curriculum. Schools are already doing so many things during school time. And so it's like, how do we extend that learning into the community and kind of like creating these, these beings who understand that they have agency and can speak to decision makers in their communities is really powerful. It's also like they're not always going to hear yes, and it's not always a given, but it's like making this effort is always progressing us towards, a more positive future, and showing people what is important to us. Um, I think that in my conversations with school board trustees and with other elected officials, both local, municipal, and provincial, is that like they're really interested in what their future voters are interested in. They want to know what's kind of is going to be coming up for them. And schools are a really great place for students to hone those skills to be able to then, speak to adults in a persuasive way.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there's a question here about homeschooling families, and you know what? I don't know the answer to that. I haven't encountered that within the program, but you know what? I'm going to find out, and I'm going to get the answer. Maybe I'll send the answer to Arij and Corey, and they can pass it on. Um, and then I think this might be a can they contact their local school district? Probably that's a good way to do it. And see if they can get access through their local school district. They might be able to create a parent account for you to get on there. Yeah.
There's another question at the bottom. Is there a way we can train students who are interested in climate action to take the leadership skills? And I'm assuming that that's where kind of like the making the eco team and all of that comes into place.
Yeah, and I think that that's a really big component of the Eco Schools program is that the desire is that we have is for the students to take on the leadership of these programs. We have quite a few school districts that have 100% of their schools participate in the program, both elementary and secondary. And by the secondary level, often the students are running all of these campaigns and initiatives. They have a sponsor teacher who kind of supervises them, but that the students take the lead. And so the idea is that as students move, have practice participating in the program, they're developing these transferable skills um, that become valuable lifelong skills in terms of the advocacy and activism that we want to see.
Mm-hmm. I have a couple more questions that were sent in, Laura, if you don't mind answering
Yeah.
those. Um, and then this is one thing that has come up in a couple of our schools group meetings as well, of like school years are obviously moving fast, leadership changes. Parents that are trying to take climate initiative in their school are like what they're trying to do is that it becomes kind of like part and parcel of the culture of the school, even if like their kid graduates or they move or change school or something of that sort. So if you have any advice for parents that want to ensure that the initiative that they're taking doesn't kind of like fizzle out and that there's continued kind of support around that.
Yeah, that's that's really important. Because again, it's like we want to see these kinds of activities at a school become part of the school culture so that they become just like second nature to do. And maybe it's not the same activities every single year over year, but um, making sure that the underlying environmental stewardship or environmental culture remains. One of the great things about the EcoSchools program is that you keep a record of all of the actions that you've done year over year. So you have access to all of the plans and the documents and the records that have come in previous years. So you can look back and see what was done and look for, you get feedback at the end of every year in terms of like suggestions for you to take in the next year. So kind of like maintaining a record of all of those things is really valuable. Um, and if you're working from the perspective of like a school council or a PAC, again, it's like having those records, uh, whether it's on social media or whether it's on if your PAC has a website or anything like that, is like keeping a record, and keeping like displaying some of the recognition that you've received about the work that has been happening, keeping that in front of people's eyes really goes a long way to maintaining that culture as people shift, not just the like parents who are kind of graduating out of a school, but also when there's changes in the administrator or changes within the school staff itself.
Hmm.
Can I just add, I think wherever you can kind of embed tradition, like, the Great Gulp, or like, it becomes the annual thing that you do every year in October and November and December, not just Earth Month, but, make those
Yeah,
things, just make them part of the culture. And then also, wherever there is a pack or a council of some kind, get eco leads on there, get like two or three eco leads and make sure that there's always a rotating up and coming new parents who are gonna take those roles, have a subcommittee, like institutionalize it throughout so that it doesn't go away. It just becomes expected. Oh yeah, who are the eco leads this year at the pack? And I was thinking also, like, when you see, especially in elementary schools, when the grade 7 and 8 students are bringing up the grades 2, 3, and 4 students into these things, and how these younger kids aspire to be those grade 7, 8 kids who are going to be the leaders in their school, and then they're training the littler ones. And you just got to find all the ways to just make it so that it can't go away. It's expected.
absolutely.
I'm conscious of time. I'm just wondering if you'll take one last question. Um, so for parents that are dealing with like a school system that's a bit conservative, and I'm assuming that they meant like conservative around climate action. So they're trying to start small and maybe kind of proposing starting a community garden or something of that sort. Is there a person who's kind of like the key holder who they should be approaching who'll help them kind of get their project off the ground?
I would say that it varies from school district to school district, but um, if eh, eh, uh, if you can work with your like if the barrier isn't your school administrator, like if the barrier isn't your principal and the barrier is at the school district, the principal can help you connect to the right staff, potentially the right staff person. So like for instance with a school garden, that is going to be happening on the grounds. So speaking to somebody in the grounds department is going to help you understand the um, conditions that's going to make it easier to have a school garden. So does the grounds person prefer the gardens to be on the grass or on the paved part of the school? Is there a location on on the school ground that would make it easier to say yes? So kind of school districts operate in silos, I find, and so figuring out which silo your project fits into means that you can kind of avoid the bureaucracy of the other departments and focus right in um, on the right person. Um, Most schools they have a grounds person that regularly visits their school to mow the lawn or to do the landscaping, and even connecting with that person, while they're on school property, just finding out who their supervisor is and who they should talk to is a good tactic. In terms of other, you know, challenging political climates to work in, I think that with lots of environmental issues, there are other co-benefits that come along with working on a project. So, um, we have a lot of participation from schools in Alberta, in Calgary, and in Edmonton, which Alberta is a challenging political climate to be working on climate stuff. Um, but when you frame your greenhouse gas emission reduction project in terms of energy conservation and energy like cost savings, by focusing on that, you reduce both the amount of the energy that you use and potentially your greenhouse gas emissions as well. And so finding the right framing to get your project underway or to get your initiative underway kind of a little bit under the radar, it's another avenue to take. And again, if your school district has a sustainability person or an energy person, they can be a really valuable resource that like they're not they don't operate under the same constraints as the learning people who work in learning services and the curriculum. So if your project is a nuts and bolts project, there's probably a staff member in the school district who's not a teacher, but who can support teachers in getting a project underway.
Hmm.
I don't know if that answered the question, but
It did. It definitely
okay.
did. Made me think a bit about like framing and messaging, and that seems to be like at the heart of climate organizing work that we do.
Yeah,
It seems that, it kind of translates into that work within the school system as well.
Can
yeah,
I offer well-being as another apolitical angle, right? Well-being for staff, for students, just to be more connected to nature, to have more tree canopy, to be able to sit in shade in your schoolyard. There's lots of ways to make this not about the politics of the day. So well-being is
Hmm.
it. There's tons of information on well-being and this kind of work.
There's this new term that I've recently learned about, which is like the well-being economy and the care economy, which seems really interesting and comes with that perspective of parents as well, right? Like all the work that they're doing is contributing to the care economy. Um, and so with that kind of element as well of the the things that they want to bring into the school system is coming from that care and concern as well, right? It's not like they're not going to get anything from it. Um, so yes, it's really interesting, and thank you so much for answering all those questions, Laura. I'm just gonna double check if we have any other questions from anyone before we wrap up. I don't think so. Or at least I'm not seeing any. Go ahead,
All right.
Michelle.
Can we just do a plug for the School Climate Action Lab? And maybe if Corey, do you have that website? Either we have a connection on our website, but I think you all have one too. But we created a tool on Canva to help you sort of map out a lot of what Laura said in terms of what are the entry points, how do you get into a school district an individual school community, and so. Laura, I'm not sure if you had a look at it, but I think we're talking the same language. So it'd be great to just maybe throw that in for folks or send it off or add it to the show notes at the end. But it's there for all of you to help you in this work and reach out to any of us. I'm sure I'm speaking for everybody here, but certainly reach out if you think there's something that we can help you with as well.
Michelle's tool is amazing, and it definitely looks at all of those pieces of like where do you get this information? What kind of documents to look into within your school system? Who are your allies? Who could be your champions? So it kind of, helps map, like physically map in a way, your school community, and then helps to figure out, okay, so where do you then take whatever initiative or intervention you want to take to. So we'll definitely include it. Thanks so much for mentioning that, Michelle. We'll include that in the details. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for joining, and thank you, Laura, for a really insightful conversation. Thank you for joining, Michelle, and for providing your insights as well. We hope that, this work that we're doing together in this climate space continues to, add value to whatever you hope to achieve, and that you do find some success in just knowing that, you're thinking about this. That's really the first step there, right there. Joining this call is another indicator of that. Or if you're watching the recording, and you can always get in touch with us. We'll include the details if you have any further questions or if you want to receive support in your climate initiatives in the schools. Well, good night, everyone.
Thanks, Laura. Thanks, Michelle. Good
Thank
night, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. Good night.
Good night.